Canada is a relatively young country, but it is full of classic landmarks that attract millions of tourists from around the world. Over the years, as Canada's population has modernized and grown, some icons have become synonymous with the country's identity. These 30 landmarks may have changed slightly over the decades, but all remain symbols of Canada's unique history and culture. Stay tuned to see these famous landmarks photographed in the past and present. Rising high above even the tallest skyscrapers, Toronto's CN Tower has been the most recognizable part of the city's skyline since it was erected in the mid-1970s. Built to supply the growing city with adequate broadcast signals, the tower opened to the public in 1976. At 1,815 feet, it was the tallest building in the world at the time. Here, the tower, captured in 1973, is about halfway through its construction, a process that employed more than 1,500 workers. The tower is now a major tourist attraction, luring over 2 million visitors each year. It's no longer the world's tallest building, but it still offers spectacular views of the city of Toronto and Lake Ontario. From the skypod level, visitors can see all the way to Niagara Falls. Brave souls can walk along the edgewalk on the outer rim of the main pod, perhaps followed by a tasty meal in the 360 restaurant, featuring the world's highest wine cellar. All of Old Quebec City is essentially a Canadian landmark, but the Grand Chateau Frontenac is a true icon. Built by the Canadian Pacific Railway Company, the castle-like hotel opened in 1893 and immediately became one of the city's most glamorous places to see and be seen. Over the years, the hotel has hosted royals, celebrities, and political dignitaries. In 1953, it was used as a set for Alfred Hitchcock's film I Confess, starring Montgomery Clift. Here, the hotel is pictured circa 1925. Now part of the Fairmont group of hotels, the exterior of the Chateau Frontenac looks much like it has for the last 125 years. The interior underwent a 75 million Canadian dollars renovation in 2014, though it still retains a sense of vintage grandeur. The hotel provides a fantastic home base for tourists who wish to get lost in the historic magic of Old Quebec while still enjoying the luxury of the chateau's restaurants and state-of-the-art spa. No one spot exemplifies Vancouver's coastal rainforest setting more than the famous Stanley Park. The 400-hectare green space opened in 1888 and was named after Governor-General Lord Stanley. While the park has many facets, a lot of which were developed between 1913 and 1936 by the city of Vancouver, one of its greatest characteristics is its massive trees, including the hollow tree, pictured here, a western red cedar stump that is believed to be up to 800 years old. Stanley Park is still an urban oasis for visitors and the people of Vancouver. The park is busy and well-utilized, with bustling beaches, bike paths, hiking trails, playgrounds, and pools, as well as an outstanding display of First Nations art and totem poles. It's also home to Vancouver Aquarium, which opened in 1956 as Canada's first public aquarium and has been visited by more than 40 million people from around the world. The fishing village of Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia is known for the dramatic Peggy's Point Lighthouse, but the town itself is also an important Atlantic Canada landmark. Located about 40 minutes from Halifax on St. Margaret's Bay, the village was founded in 1811, with the famed lighthouse following in 1915. Similar to communities all over the province, the village offers visitors a glimpse into traditional Nova Scotia life. This 1960 photo shows how little the village has changed over time. Part of what makes Peggy's Cove so well known is that the village welcomes tourists, even though it is still an active fishing community. As visitors make the trek out to the lighthouse, they'll find a restaurant. Yes, it specializes in seafood. various gift shops, an art installation paying homage to the area's fishermen, and a gallery showcasing the work of local artist William E. DeGarth. As a natural phenomenon, Niagara Falls has a history that dates back over 12,000 years. The two main sets of falls sit on either side of the Canada-US border, with the 188-foot Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side. The arrival of European settlers in Canada turned Niagara Falls into one of Canada's first tourist attractions. In this illustration, the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall are seen visiting Horseshoe Falls in 1901. Horseshoe Falls remains an immensely popular landmark. Tourists flock to the nearby observation decks to watch approximately 1 million bathtubs worth of water rush over its crestline every minute. Visitors can also spend time at the museums and attractions in the adjacent town of Niagara Falls, known as the honeymoon capital of the world, get a bird's-eye view from the Skylon Tower, or take a closer look at the magnificent falls from a boat or helicopter tour. Like many natural wonders, the beautiful turquoise waters of Lake Louise and its majestic mountain peaks look much the same now as they would have hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. Mountaineers have long been attracted to the 1.5-mile lake extending from the Victoria Glacier. It's an easy hour-long stroll around the lake, as enjoyed by these hikers in 1955, with plenty of day hike trails to spots like Lake Agnes and the plain of 6 glaciers in the mountains above. The stunning view from the shores of Lake Louise warranted the building of the Chateau, Lake Louise Hotel in 1890. Even visitors who are not staying in the hotel are drawn to the lake to skate, take a canoe out on the waters, or pose for photos in front of that famous view. The lake is a victim of its own popularity, however, and parking at the lakefront is extremely limited. Accessing the natural wonder through a Parks Canada shuttle is recommended, especially during the summer season. Known as Montreal's Mother Church, the Notre Dame Basilica is more than just a grand church. The Catholic Basilica represents the place of worship of the Notre Dame parish and is closely linked to the founding of Montreal in the mid-1600s. The current Gothic Revival building was constructed between 1824 and 1829, built to mimic Notre Dame de Paris. At its completion, it was the largest place of worship in all of North America. St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York stole the title in 1879. Today, Notre Dame continues as an operating church as well as a historical landmark. In 1982, Pope John Paul II raised the church to the rank of minor basilica. Mass is offered in the basilica, and it has also been the site of many religious ceremonies, including the funeral of Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau and the wedding of singer Celine Dion and Renee Angel. For non-worshippers, the facility also regularly hosts concerts and other cultural events. No building in Canada is as representative of the country's democracy as the home of the Canadian federal government. Amazingly, these dramatic Gothic Revival buildings predate Canada itself, having been completed in 1865, 2 years before Confederation. The site of the buildings, while the center block is the most famous, there are actually 3 buildings on Parliament Hill, was a former military garrison, offering clear views of the Ottawa River. The House of Commons buildings have a striking look and are fascinating to visit, but they're also functional government buildings where laws are passed. That said, the center block is currently the subject of a $5 billion Canadian dollars renovation, the most significant renovation of a Canadian historical building ever. That started in 2019 and will leave the building unoccupied until at least 2030, with the government currently convening at the West Block. Looming over the city of St. John's, the Signal Hill National Historic Site's Cabot Tower is one of the most important and recognizable landmarks in Atlantic Canada. The hill itself has long been used as a lookout, with a military flag signaling system coming into play, beginning in the early 1700s. Later, Guglielmo Marconi, pictured, used the hill for another kind of signal, receiving the first transatlantic wireless signal in 1901. With such a rich past, many visitors make their way up to the visitor center to get a full handle on Signal Hill's 300-plus years of history. A noonday gun is still fired daily at midday, and flag signaling demonstrations are held regularly. But it's not just about history. The area is also full of natural beauty and hiking trails. Hikers looking for a rest can drink in the view from one of the over 200 signature red Adirondack chairs scattered on site. Only a few decades ago, you couldn't drive far through the prairie provinces without constantly spotting clusters of colorful wooden grain elevators on the horizon. Farmers would drive their grain to these elevators for storage before it was loaded into rail cars and shipped across the country. At the height of their ubiquity, there were thousands of wooden grain elevators scattered across the prairies, providing food to Canadians from coast to coast. Unfortunately, modernization and the decline of the family farm in favor of larger operations means that most grain is now stored in much larger concrete structures. As the old wooden elevators fell into disrepair, most were taken down with only a fraction still standing. Some remaining elevators have earned heritage designation or protection, with the occasional elevator operating as a museum or tourist site, like this one pictured in Manitoba. Toronto may not have a history as long as castle-heavy European locations, but the city is home to an ornate inner-city castle. In 1911, British-born businessman Sir Henry Pellet began planning his dream home, a castle inspired by his love of European fine art and architecture. Facing financial hardship, Pellet had to eventually let go of the house. It was briefly turned into a hotel and eventually taken over by the City of Toronto, which still owns the property. Even though the city considered demolishing Casa Loma at one point, the castle eventually became a popular tourist destination. It's open daily for visitors to explore and is full of exhibits detailing how the Pellet family would have lived during their time there. The current operators, Liberty Entertainment Group, also offer Casa Loma as a private events venue, renting it out for weddings, corporate events, film shoots, and concerts. Located on the eastern edge of the Canadian mainland, Halifax waterfront is one of the busiest parts of the city. The Port of Halifax has been a key part of Canada's economic activity since the 1700s, when Colonel Edward Cornwallis founded the city. This illustration from around 1870 shows the activity around the waterfront, which would have only increased when the intercolonial railway reached Halifax in 1872. The waterfront still represents a very busy port, but the land around the harbor has also been developed as a place to walk, eat, explore, and shop. It's the perfect spot to get a lobster roll, a full sit-down seafood dinner, or a quick ice cream cone. Those looking to explore further can check out the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic or the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21, or hop on a boat to see George Island National Historic Site. Entry is seasonal. A central meeting spot in Toronto, Nathan Phillips Square is technically the outdoor space in front of the city's new City Hall, but the architecture of the building is closely associated with the square itself. Both the famous arched towers of the building and the paved public plaza, which features a large reflective pool, were completed in 1965. Nathan Phillips, the square's namesake, was mayor of Toronto in the period leading up to the square's construction. Phillips' name lives on through the square, since it is a central part of life in Toronto. In the winter, the reflective pool is used as a skating rink, attracting thousands of Torontonians looking for some family fun. Like many public squares, Nathan Phillips is used as both a place to hang out and a place for public discourse. A spirit garden honoring Indigenous survivors and children lost to residential schools is currently under construction. The most recognizable building on Victoria's picturesque Inner Harbour, the Empress, is another classic hotel built by the Canadian Pacific Railway. The hotel opened in 1908 and was named after Queen Victoria in reference to her role as the Empress of India. A social hub for Victoria's well-to-do, The Empress is most associated with its afternoon tea service, which has been its trademark since the beginning. Today, the Empress, now operated by Fairmont, is still abuzz with activity. You don't have to be staying at the hotel to enjoy tea service or a cocktail at the bar, preferably made with the hotel's signature Indigo Empress 1908 gin, and many tourists wandering along the waterfront make their way into the hotel just for a peek at the historic interior. The Empress, like Victoria itself, is also known for its flowers, with beautiful gardens and greenery lining the grounds. Banff, known as Canada's oldest national park, is celebrated for its snowy mountain peaks, turquoise lakes, and remarkable wildlife, but it's also the name of the charming town located within the park. The town's first buildings started to pop up towards the end of the 19th century. The main drag, Banff Avenue, is full of historic buildings designed to serve tourists. This photo from 1960 shows the view of the relatively quiet Banff Avenue with Cascade Mountain in the distance. Banff Avenue has changed substantially since the mid-century, now accommodating an estimated 43,000 people on a typical summer day. As a result, the busy area is now a combination of those historic buildings, now home to gift shops, restaurants and museums, and newer hotel builds. As bustling as it is, the street still maintains a sense of rugged charm as well as that classic view of Cascade Mountain.